"You're not in my league financially, not husband material," she said in front of her entire party. I replied, "You're right." I sent one text. Minutes later, the helicopter touched down. She started begging. "I'm Tyler, 28, and I run a tech company in Austin. Been doing it for about 4 years now. We handle enterprise software solutions, basically helping companies manage their data infrastructure. Sounds boring as hell when you say it out loud, but turns out corporations will pay serious money for someone who can keep their systems from falling apart. The business is worth around $50 million now." Yeah, you read that right, $50 million. Started in my apartment with 2 laptops and a dream, as they say. Except I actually had a business plan and connections from my previous job at a bigger tech firm. Left when I realized I was building someone else's empire instead of my own. First year was rough. Living on ramen, working 16-hour days, convincing companies to trust a nobody with their data security. But I'm good at what I do. Really good. By year 2, we had 12 clients and I hired my first employees. By year 3, we were pulling in serious revenue and competing with established players. The thing is, I learned real quick that money does something weird to people, changes how they see you, and usually not in ways that help you figure out who they actually are. Back in my early 20s, I dated a few women who got way more interested the second they found out about my financial situation. Like aggressively interested. Suddenly, they wanted to meet my friends, see my place, talk about the future. Made me wonder if they wanted me or just my bank account. Turns out the answer was pretty obvious when the relationship ended. The moment they realized I wasn't about to bankroll their lifestyle. That experience left a bad taste. Made me paranoid about people's motives. I started keeping my financial situation close to the chest. When people asked what I did, I'd just say I worked in tech. Let them assume whatever they wanted. Most people pictured a developer at some startup making decent money, but nothing spectacular. I wasn't lying exactly, just not volunteering information. So, when I met Madison about 14 months ago, I decided to try something different. Keep the wealth completely under wraps. See what kind of person she was when she thought I was just another software guy making decent money. Nothing special, no flash, no showing off, just regular Tyler who happened to work in tech. Looking back, maybe it was a test. Maybe that makes me manipulative. But after getting burned before, I needed to know someone wanted me for me, not for what I could provide financially. Met her at this coffee shop on South Lamar. Radio Coffee. Great spot. Always busy with the laptop crowd. She was there every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, posted up at this corner table by the window with textbooks everywhere, studying for her business degree finals at UT. I'd been going there for months, working on my laptop, taking calls with clients, and we'd made eye contact a bunch of times. Nothing creepy, just that thing where you recognize someone as a regular and do the nod thing. She had this way of studying that was almost aggressive. Highlighters everywhere, notes spread out like she was planning a military operation. I respected the dedication. Finally worked up the nerve to ask if she needed a refill on her coffee after I saw her cup had been empty for like an hour. "That obvious I'm struggling," she said, laughing. "Either that or you really like staring at the same page for 20 minutes. She was gorgeous, obviously, but also sharp, like really sharp. Quick wit, confident, the kind of person who knew she belonged wherever she was. We ended up talking for 3 hours that first afternoon. Started with small talk about her finals, then moved to everything from Austin's crazy growth and housing market to her family's history in the city. Traffic was getting worse every year. Rent was skyrocketing. All the usual Austin complaints. Turns out her great-grandfather was some cattle baron back in the day, and her family still had serious money, old Austin money, the kind that comes with social expectations and country club memberships. She didn't lead with it, but it came up naturally when she talked about growing up here. Summer camps at expensive places, private schools, family gatherings at the country club. She wasn't bragging exactly, just talking about her life the way anyone would. From day one, I could tell she was trying to figure out my financial situation. Not in a gold digger way exactly, but like someone who grew up around wealth and was used to sorting people by their economic status. She'd make comments about the coffee shop being affordable or mention how she loved that it attracted normal people, not just the rich kid college students. Little probes to see where I fit in the social hierarchy. When I picked her up for our first real date in my Toyota Camry, I saw her glance at it with this look I couldn't quite read. She lived in a nice neighborhood in West Campus, one of those newer apartment buildings with a doorman and everything. I pulled up in my 2019 Camry. Silver, clean, but nothing special. Reliable transportation gets you from point A to point B without drawing attention. She came out looking amazing. Casual but put together in that way where you know someone spent time getting ready. I got out to open the passenger door for her and caught that glance. Just a split second where her eyes went from me to the car and back to me processing. "Nice car," she said, sliding in. But the tone told me everything. She was being polite. I deliberately picked the Camry over the BMW M5 sitting in my garage at home. The Beamer was fun, don't get me wrong, but it screamed money. The Camry whispered, "I'm financially responsible and don't care about impressing anyone." Wanted to see how she'd react to dating someone who looked solidly middle class instead of wealthy. Took her to a mid-range Italian place on West 6th. Nothing fancy but good food. The kind of spot where you can get a decent pasta dish for $20. When the check came, I didn't make a show of it. Just pulled out my card and paid. She offered to split it, which I respected, but I waved her off. "I got it," I said. "You can get the next one." "Deal," she said, smiling. But I noticed she didn't suggest where the next one should be. Usually, when someone says, "I'll get the next one," they follow up with a place they want to try. She just left it hanging there. Over the next few months, I got a masterclass in how people from old money families view economic differences. Madison was never mean about it, never directly insulting, but there were these constant little comments that revealed how she saw things, little tests and observations that placed me in her mental hierarchy. "There's this incredible restaurant in Westlake, but it's probably pretty expensive," she'd say when suggesting dinner plans. The implication being that she wanted to go, but didn't want to burden me with the cost. "My dad might be able to introduce you to some people in tech who could help with your career," she'd offer, assuming I needed networking help, like I was some junior developer who needed a hand up from the old boys network. "I love that you're so practical about money," she said once after I suggested we split an expensive dinner bill. "Most guys try to impress me by spending way more than they can afford. It's honestly refreshing that you're honest about your limits." My limits. Like I had some cap on what I could spend. And she was grateful I wasn't pretending otherwise. The thing is, I'd never said I couldn't afford anything. I just didn't throw money around. But she'd constructed this narrative where I was the financially constrained boyfriend who needed her understanding and patience. Her family was polite when I met them, but distant. Met them for Sunday brunch at their place about 2 months into dating. Not a house, a compound. Seriously, gated property in Tarrytown with a main house that looked like something out of Architectural Digest. Pool house, guest house, gardens that probably required a full-time gardener. Her parents, Catherine and Richard, treated me like a pleasant enough guy who was clearly temporary. They'd ask basic questions about my work, nod politely when I explained what my company did, then change the subject to stuff they found more interesting. Country club gossip, upcoming charity events, people I'd never heard of doing things I didn't care about. "Software," Richard said like he was tasting the word. "Lots of opportunity in that field right now. Austin's becoming quite the tech hub." "It is," I agreed. "Must be exciting working at one of these startups." "Which one are you with?" "I actually run my own company. Small operation, but we're growing." "Oh, a startup founder," Catherine said in that tone where you can't tell if they're impressed or concerned. "That's ambitious. Hope you have a good runway. Most of those fold within a few years." They weren't wrong statistically, but the way they said it made it clear they thought I was one of the statistics waiting to happen. Young guy with big dreams and a high failure rate ahead of him. The kind of person their daughter would eventually outgrow once she got serious about her future. Her uncle Garrett was the worst though. Investment banker, probably early 50s. The kind of guy who wore his success like a uniform, expensive watch, designer everything. That confident swagger that comes from making more money than most people see in a lifetime. He had this way of talking down to me that was subtle enough to avoid being obviously rude, but clear enough that I always left family gatherings feeling like I'd been evaluated and found lacking. First time I met him was at a family dinner. Madison had warned me he could be intense, but I figured intense just meant opinionated. Turned out intense meant condescending with a smile. "Software, huh?" he said, shaking my hand with that grip that's just a little too firm. "Competitive field. Hope you're saving money for when the market shifts. These things are cyclical, you know." "I'm aware," I said. "Austin's tech scene is pretty volatile," he continued, not really listening to my response. "Lots of companies hiring now, but wait till the next downturn. Smart to keep your expectations realistic. Don't want to overextend yourself financially." He said it like he was giving me sage advice, like I was some naive kid who didn't understand how business worked. Meanwhile, my company had just closed a deal that would bring in more revenue than he probably made in a year. But I nodded and smiled because I was the grateful boyfriend meeting the important uncle. Later that night, Madison asked how I thought it went. Your uncle's protective, I said. He's always like that with guys I date. Wants to make sure they're serious and have their act together. He does. He do background checks too, or just the intimidation thing? She laughed. He's harmless, just successful and wants the same for family. But that was the thing. He wasn't checking if I was good for Madison. He was checking if I was wealthy enough for Madison. Big difference. And in his assessment, I clearly wasn't. I was some tech worker dating above my station. And he enjoyed reminding me of that dynamic every chance he got. Over the next several months, every family gathering followed the same pattern. Garrett would ask me about work. I'd give vague answers about software and clients. And he'd offer unsolicited advice about managing money and being realistic about career trajectories. Richard would politely inquire about my company's prospects, always with that undertone of concern. Catherine would be gracious but distant, the way you'd treat a temporary guest in your home. And Madison would navigate it all like it was completely normal. Because for her, it was. This was just how her family operated. They sized people up, categorized them, and treated them accordingly. I was the okay-for-now boyfriend who would eventually be replaced by someone more suitable, someone from their world. The weird thing was I started to internalize some of it. Not because I believed I wasn't successful, but because constantly being treated like you're less than eventually affects how you see yourself in that environment. I'd find myself feeling defensive about my choices, my lifestyle, my apparent lack of ambition to live more extravagantly. Started second-guessing whether I should just tell them the truth, end the charade. But every time I got close, something would happen that reminded me exactly why I was doing this. Like the time we went car shopping, Madison wanted to look at new cars, even though hers was fine, just wanted something newer, something that fit the image she had of herself. We went to a BMW dealership and she was looking at the 3 Series. Nice car, nothing crazy. Salesperson assumed we were together and started giving us the couple's pitch about financing options and how we could afford it with 2 incomes. Madison laughed. Oh no, this is just for me. Tyler's more of a Camry guy. The way she said it, not mean, just matter of fact, like it was obvious that I drove a Camry because that's what I could afford, not because I chose to. The salesperson pivoted smoothly, focused on her, and I stood there thinking about the BMW in my garage that was nicer than anything on this lot. Or the time her friends took us out for someone's birthday, fancy steakhouse downtown, the kind where the sides are extra and you're dropping $200 a person easy. The bill came and everyone started splitting it. Madison pulled out her card without hesitating, then looked at me with this concerned expression. You want to split mine with me? She offered quietly. I know this place is kind of ridiculous, like she was doing me a favor, protecting me from the embarrassment of not being able to afford my share. I paid for my portion and hers without comment, but the whole thing left this bad taste. She just assumed I needed financial help. Madison never said anything directly critical, but there were patterns. She'd suggest restaurants and then quickly backtrack when she remembered I might not want to spend that much. She'd talk about vacation ideas, Europe or expensive ski trips, then pivot to more realistic options like driving to South Padre. When she caught herself, she'd mention something she wanted to buy, some designer bag or expensive jewelry, and then joke about how she'd have to wait until she found a rich husband. All of it was said with affection, like she was being considerate of my financial limitations. But it built this dynamic where she was the financially secure one doing me a favor by dating down. And I was the guy who should be grateful for her flexibility about my economic status. She'd never actually asked me about my finances, never inquired about what my company made or what my personal situation looked like. She just made assumptions based on my car and my lifestyle and decided that was the complete picture. The thing that really got me was how comfortable she was with this dynamic. She wasn't bothered by thinking I made less money than her. Wasn't concerned that I might not be able to provide the lifestyle she was used to. Because in her mind, this relationship had an expiration date anyway. I was the practice boyfriend, the guy she dated while she was young and before she got serious about finding someone from her world, someone who fit with the family expectations and the country club membership and the life she'd been raised to expect. I'd hear her on the phone with her mom sometimes talking about the future in vague terms that made it clear I wasn't part of those plans. When I get married, not when we get married. My future kids, not our future kids. Little linguistic tells that revealed how she actually saw this relationship. And honestly, part of me was relieved because it meant when the truth came out, when she finally saw who I actually was, I'd know exactly what she'd been thinking this whole time. No room for doubt, no chance she could claim she'd always valued me for me. The evidence would be crystal clear. Her graduation party was last month. She'd been talking about it for weeks. Big celebration at Westwood Country Club. Family tradition. All her relatives and family friends invited. She was proud of finishing her business degree. And her parents were throwing this elaborate party to celebrate. Probably 200 people invited. Professional event planning. The whole thing. It's going to be pretty fancy, she warned me a few days before. Like really fancy. My family goes all out for these things. Open bar, sit-down dinner, probably dancing. Very formal. Sounds great, I said. Looking forward to celebrating with you. Just, don't feel like you need to go crazy on a gift or anything. She added, your being there is enough. Even the gift comment like she needed to manage my expectations about what I could afford to give her. I'd already ordered a custom piece of jewelry that cost more than her car, but she'd never know that because it was being delivered directly to my place, not hers. What's the dress code? I asked. Cocktail attire. But honestly, just wear whatever you have, that's nice. No one's going to judge. Translation: no one's going to judge because they already have low expectations of you. Wear your off-the-rack suit and it'll be fine because you're not really part of the family anyway. What I didn't tell her was that I'd been to Westwood Country Club plenty of times for business events. My company had sponsored their charity golf tournament for the past 2 years. Wrote a check for $75,000 last year. Had my photo taken with their board members. Got the thank you plaque that was probably still hanging in their clubhouse somewhere, but she'd never made the connection because she'd never thought to look. The night of the party, I showed up in my usual khakis and button-down. Nice enough for most occasions, but definitely underdressed compared to everyone else there. Men in suits that probably cost more than most people's rent. Women in dresses that screamed designer labels. Jewelry that could fund a small country. This was old Austin money on full display. Madison looked incredible. Black dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Hair and makeup professionally done. Full formal treatment. She was glowing, surrounded by family and friends, clearly in her element. This was her world, and she belonged in it completely. She introduced me around to her relatives, and I could see them sizing me up, trying to place me in their social hierarchy. Quick handshakes, polite smiles, names I'd forget in 5 minutes. All of them doing the mental math. Nice enough guy. Clearly not from money. Probably won't last past summer. This is Tyler. She'd say he works in software. Not he runs a company or he's an entrepreneur or even he's my boyfriend Tyler. Just he works in software. Like I was someone's employee rather than someone's boss. Like I was an interesting detail about her life rather than an actual person who mattered. The party was everything you'd expect from old money Austin families. Catered dinner with multiple courses. Some fancy menu with food I couldn't pronounce and portions that looked like art installations. Open bar with top shelf everything, though I stuck with one drink because I had plans for later. Live music from some local jazz quartet that probably cost more than most people make in a month. Everything perfectly executed. Everything expensive. Everything designed to impress. I spent the first hour making small talk with her relatives, most of whom seemed pleasant enough, but clearly weren't particularly interested in getting to know me. Surface-level conversations, weather, traffic, how nice the venue looked, nothing substantial, just filling time until they could politely move on to someone more interesting. Madison's dad gave a toast about halfway through the evening, stood up with champagne glass raised, got everyone's attention, talked about how proud they were of her accomplishments, how she was going to do great things in the business world, how she'd always had excellent judgment and a bright future ahead. Made some joke about how the family business might finally have someone worthy to take it over someday. Everyone laughed, clinked glasses. Then he made some comment about how she already had good judgment, gesturing toward the family and their circle of friends. Just look at the people she surrounds herself with. Quality all around. The implication was clear. This was her world. These were quality people. And I was just visiting. Tolerated, but not included. The boyfriend, who'd be a funny story later when she married someone appropriate. Around 8 p.m., Madison and I were standing with a group of her relatives near the bar. Her cousin was talking about some investment opportunity in commercial real estate. Some deal downtown that sounded half-baked to me, but everyone was nodding along like it was genius. Garrett was there, of course, nodding along, occasionally throwing out terms like cap rate and market fundamentals to remind everyone how knowledgeable he was. Madison was on her third glass of champagne, not falling over or anything, but definitely more relaxed than usual, loose, comfortable among her people. So, Tyler, Garrett said, turning to me with that smile that wasn't really a smile. What's your take on Austin's commercial real estate market? Thinking about diversifying your portfolio? He said it with this smirk, like he was testing me, Like he knew I didn't have a portfolio to diversify. Just another opportunity to remind me I was out of my depth. I'm focused on other investments right now, I said simply. Vague enough to not lie. Specific enough to not give anything away. Smart, he replied, nodding like he was praising a child for basic math. Probably best to stick with what you know. Real estate requires significant capital, not for everyone. A few people chuckled. The message was clear. Stay in your lane, software guy. Don't try to play in the big leagues. Then Madison laughed. Not a polite laugh. A real one. And I knew before she even opened her mouth that something bad was about to happen. Tyler's not really in my league financially, she said, still smiling like this was all very amusing. He's sweet and everything, but definitely not husband material. Not for this family anyway. She said it like she was commenting on the weather, just a casual observation shared among her people. The group went quiet for maybe 2 seconds. That awkward silence when someone says something they probably shouldn't. A few people glanced at me, probably wondering how I'd react. But then Garrett chuckled and someone else made a comment about knowing your limits. And the conversation started moving on. Like what she'd said was just an accepted truth everyone already knew. Of course, Tyler wasn't husband material. Look at him. Look at where he came from. Obviously temporary. I stood there for a moment processing what just happened. She just publicly declared that I wasn't good enough for her family, that I was fun for now, but not serious relationship material. And she'd done it in front of a dozen people who clearly agreed with her assessment. People who'd been thinking the exact same thing this entire time. You know what the worst part was? She wasn't even trying to be mean. She was just stating what she thought was obvious. In her mind, this was a fact everyone already understood. I wasn't wealthy enough for her family standards. Therefore, I wasn't husband material. Simple equation. I could have gotten angry. Could have made a scene. Could have called her out right there in front of everyone. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone and sent one text message. 3 words en route. ETA 8. Then I finished the last sip of my drink, set the glass down on a nearby table, straightened my shirt. You're absolutely right, I said to Madison, voice calm. I'm not in your league. She looked confused, probably expected me to argue or get defensive or try to prove myself like guys usually did when she said stuff like this. Instead, I just stood there calm as could be. Tyler, I didn't mean it like that, she started. But her tone wasn't apologetic. More like she was trying to manage the situation. Keep me from making a scene. No, you did. And that's fine. I appreciate you being honest. I checked my watch. 2 minutes. The conversation had picked back up around us. People were pretending they hadn't heard anything. Talking about other stuff, drinks, plans for the summer, anything to move past the awkward moment. But I caught Garrett watching me with this satisfied expression, like I'd finally accepted my place. Finally understood that I didn't belong here. Then I heard it faint at first, then getting louder, that distinctive sound. The deep thump 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 of helicopter rotors cutting through the air. Everyone looked confused as the noise grew. Some people walked toward the windows. The country club had a large lawn area, and you could see through the floor-to-ceiling glass doors that something was approaching. The sound got louder, closer. Then suddenly there it was coming in low over the treein. A helicopter, not some tiny news chopper. A nice one. Corporate. The kind that screamed executive transport. Is someone leaving? Madison's mom asked, looking around like maybe there was an emergency. Must be something important, someone else said. People were gathering at the windows now, watching as the helicopter settled onto the lawn. Rotor wash sending ripples through the grass. Landing lights bright against the evening sky. Professional pilot visible in the cockpit going through post-landing checks. I set down my empty glass and buttoned my jacket. Straightened my collar. That's my ride. I said not to anyone in particular. Just out loud. Madison turned to me like I'd spoken another language. What? My helicopter. I have a dinner meeting in Houston at 10 o'clock. Figured I'd take the chopper since driving would take too long. Traffic's terrible this time of evening. Her face went completely blank, like her brain was trying to process information that didn't compute. Helicopter, dinner meeting, Houston. None of this fit with the person she thought she'd been dating. You have a helicopter, Garrett said. And for the first time since I'd met him, he sounded unsure. I don't personally own it. No, my company leases one for business travel. More efficient than flying commercial when you're moving between cities regularly. The pilots are on call basically 24/7. Send a text. They file a flight plan. 30 minutes later, you're in the air. I could see the wheels turning in Madison's head. Company, helicopter, business travel, pilots on call. Suddenly, the past 14 months were getting reframed in real time. Tyler, wait, she said, grabbing my arm. Her voice had gone up an octave. What's going on? What company? What are you talking about? Nothing's going on. You said I'm not husband material for your family because I'm not in your league financially. You're right. I should probably date someone who actually wants to be with me, rather than someone who's slumbing it until she finds a richer guy. That's not what I meant, she said. But her voice cracked. She knew exactly what she'd meant. It's exactly what you meant. And honestly, it's been what you've meant for the past 14 months. Every comment about my practical lifestyle, every suggestion that your family could help my career, every joke about finding a rich husband, I heard all of it loud and clear. By now, the entire party had noticed something was happening. Conversations had stopped. People were watching us, watching the helicopter sitting on the lawn with its engines still running, trying to figure out what was going on. Garrett stepped forward and I could see him trying to reassert control of the situation. Now, hold on. If you've got the kind of money for helicopter transport, why are you driving a Camry and living like you're counting pennies? Because I wanted to know who Madison actually was. Turns out she's exactly who she showed me. Someone who measures people by their bank accounts. Someone who thinks a Toyota Camry tells you everything you need to know about a person's worth. I gently removed Madison's hand from my arm. She was just standing there, mouth slightly open, no words coming out. I've spent over a year watching you and your family treat me like I was beneath you. The comments about my car, about my career prospects, about keeping my expectations realistic. Your uncle here telling me to save money for when the market shifts like I'm some entry-level employee living paycheck to paycheck. Your parents politely tolerating me but never actually including me in anything that mattered. And you constantly being considerate of my financial limitations that only existed in your head. Tyler, Catherine said, stepping forward now. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. Your daughter just announced to a room full of people that I'm not wealthy enough to marry into this family. She's right. I'm not because I wouldn't want to. I turned to leave and Madison grabbed my arm again harder this time. Tyler, please can we talk about this? I didn't know. You never told me. How was I supposed to know you were successful? You drove a Toyota. You lived simply. I shouldn't have had to tell you. You should have wanted to be with me either way. That was the whole point. People were gathering near the windows now, watching this scene unfold. I could see phones coming out. Someone was definitely recording this. Great. Tomorrow I'd probably be viral on local social media. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. What company do you work for? Richard asked, his voice different now. Not condescending, actually curious, maybe even concerned. I don't work for a company. I own one. Data Shield Solutions. We do enterprise software and data infrastructure. Started it 4 years ago in my apartment. We're currently valued at about $50 million, and we just closed a deal with Dell last month that'll probably double that. The silence was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was just staring at me, recalculating everything they'd thought they knew. Data Shield? Garrett said slowly. You're the founder of Data Shield? That's what I just said. We looked at investing in your Series B round. I recommended against it because the founder was too young and unproven. He said it like he was realizing he'd made a massive mistake. That was you? Probably. Doesn't matter now. We got funded anyway. I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear the conversation exploding. People asking Madison who I was. Garrett demanding to know why she'd never mentioned this. Catherine saying something about reaching out later to discuss things properly. Madison followed me outside, her heels clicking on the stone pathway. The helicopter was right there, 30 feet away, rotors still spinning at idle. The pilot saw me coming and gave a thumbs up through the window. Tyler, stop. Please, we need to talk about this. I turned to face her one last time. What's there to talk about? You just told a room full of people I'm not good enough for you. I'm just agreeing with you. Only difference is I'm not good enough because I wouldn't want to be part of a family that judges people the way yours does. I didn't mean it, she said. And now she was actually crying. Mascara starting to run. I was being stupid. I was showing off for my family. I do that sometimes. I didn't think you didn't think I'd do anything about it. You didn't think I had any options. You thought I'd just take it because guys like me should be grateful for girls like you. That's the problem. No, that's not. It is. And deep down, you know it is. I climbed into the helicopter, put on the headset, gave Steve the signal. As we lifted off, I looked down and saw Madison standing there on the lawn, her dress whipping in the rotor wash, staring up at us. Behind her, the entire party was gathered at the windows, watching, recording, witnessing what had just become the most talked about moment in Austin Country Club history. The pilot, Steve, didn't ask any questions. We'd flown together dozens of times. He knew when to stay quiet. My phone started blowing up before we even cleared Austin city limits. Madison called 6 times, then her dad called, then her mom, then Garrett, then Madison again. I put it on silent and watched the lights of Austin disappear behind us. The dinner meeting in Houston was real, actually. Potential client worth about $8 million in annual recurring revenue. We landed at a private airfield outside the city and I took a car to the restaurant. Spent 3 hours talking about data infrastructure and security protocols. Closed the deal over dessert. That's the thing about actual business. It doesn't care about your family name or your country club membership. It cares about whether you can solve problems and deliver results. Got back to Austin around 1 a.m. My phone had 47 missed calls and 89 text messages. I didn't read any of them. Just went home to my actual home, the penthouse downtown that Madison had never seen because I'd always said I had roommates to avoid her visiting. Slept fine, better than I had in months, actually. The next morning, I finally looked at the messages. Madison's progressed from confused to angry to desperate to apologetic to angry again. Her parents wanted to talk. Garrett wanted to apologize and discuss business opportunities. Her friends were asking what happened. The best one came from Madison's mom. Tyler, I hope you can forgive our family's behavior. We'd love to have you for dinner this week to properly welcome you to our circle. Welcome to their circle. After 14 months of treating me like a charity case, I spent the weekend at my place processing how differently they were all treating me now. Not because I'd changed at all, but because their perception of my value had shifted completely. That told me everything I needed to know about what our relationship had actually meant. Update 1. 6 weeks later. It's been 6 weeks since the graduation party, and Madison has launched what can only be described as a full-scale campaign to get me back. The desperation is honestly hard to watch. She started by showing up at my office building, waiting in the lobby with coffee and apologies. My assistant had to call security twice before I told them to just not let her upstairs anymore. She's tried everything from tearful apologies to angry confrontations about how I lied by omission about my wealth. You made me look like a fool, she said during one particularly dramatic lobby visit that half my employees witnessed. How was I supposed to know you were actually successful? You drove a Toyota. That's the part she still doesn't understand. I wasn't hiding my success to trick her. I was living modestly to see her true values. The fact that she feels foolish says everything about why she was with me in the first place. Her family has doubled down on reconciliation efforts. Richard has called 4 times wanting to discuss investment opportunities with my company. Catherine sent flowers to my office with a note about family misunderstandings and how much they'd always admired my work ethic. Garrett tried to set up a lunch meeting to talk about mutual business interests, as if we'd always been peers instead of him spending a year talking down to me like I was his daughter's charity project. The social pressure campaign is the worst part. She's been reaching out to every mutual friend we have, explaining how much she loves me and how this is all a big misunderstanding. Half of them think I should give her another chance because people make mistakes. The other half think I'm completely justified in walking away. She's posted old photos of us on Instagram with captions about working through challenges and love being stronger than pride. It's like she's trying to rewrite history, pretending the breakup was about communication issues rather than her publicly humiliating me for not being wealthy enough for her standards. The most telling thing happened 3 weeks ago. I was having dinner downtown when I spotted her across the restaurant with some guy who was clearly trying to impress her. Expensive watch, talking loudly about his investment portfolio, name-dropping local business owners. She looked bored out of her mind. When she saw me, she excused herself and came over to my table. That guy is a complete loser, she said, like we were still together. All he talks about is money and status. I miss being with someone real, someone with actual substance. Someone real. After she dumped me for not having enough money. You taught me what actually matters, she continued. Success isn't about showing off. It's about character. That's why I fell in love with you. But here's what she still didn't get. She'd fallen in love with a version of me that she'd constructed in her mind. The humble, hard-working guy who needed her family's help to advance his career. She'd never actually known the real me because the real me had been testing her character the entire time we were together. I've been clear with everyone that this isn't about pride or hurt feelings. It's about what I learned about her when she thought I couldn't offer her anything valuable. That information doesn't become irrelevant just because she's sorry. Now guys, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.